Hooks-o-mania, fun. Okay, so I'm going to do the talk in English in order to be a little bit more inclusive, but if you have questions in French, I can answer in French at the end, no problem. I'm going to talk to you today about patterns and design architecture at Alan and some fun adventures we had with hooks recently. So this talk is going to be a little bit more React oriented because, of course, hooks are React patterns. Our whole code base needs TypeScript, so it's a little bit related. So to start, I will just present a little bit myself. So I'm Emma Goldblum. I've been working at Alan for 4 years now. Very happy to be here. And we are a huge code base with more than 100 engineers across different continents that works together. So of course, this particular setup is going to impact a little bit more our design and architecture choices. To start this discussion about hooks, I want to go a little bit back in time in 2019, just before hooks arrived in the React landscape, where actually higher components were everywhere. So I don't know if you know them, if you remember them, maybe a little bit trembling. It were functions that take components, do a little bit logic with that, or inject some props, for example, and then return the components. It was widely used as a solution to actually tinker with logic and share this logic a bit everywhere. It was particularly important for components that needed to subscribe to external data. For example, subscribe to a reducer or any state management, for example. They were really everywhere. So here's a little example for a component where, for example, well, I need to have this authentication layer around it. If I'm not authenticated, I want to redirect it to a login. If I'm authenticated, I want to access my components. Fine, so here's is my hardened component format. But wait, I also need to themify everything. Like I want to have a dark theme or light theme. So I will create just a hierarchy components for theme. But wait, I also need to have some proper logging around my hierarchy components. Well, okay, I had the hierarchy components for that. But wait, I also need to do some error boundaries around it. And I didn't even spoken about accessing to external data. So in the end, I have this very little, very cute component user profile that I need to encapsulate with a layer of hierarchy components. And this is where things start to be a bit messy. Hierarchy components abuse, when I say abuse, it's like I put them everywhere in my code base and use them in every kind of sense. Adds some complexity because when you need to layer them and think about the order of your hierarchy components, it's starting to be a bit slower to develop some components. Then there's props collisions. This is where the order of your hierarchy components matter. Like if a component tinker with the specific props, but then deeper another hierarchy components tinker with the same props, in which order should I put them in order to avoid some side effect that I didn't think about? And then very hard to debug. I don't know if you try to put a breaking point in hierarchy components. Don't do that, it doesn't work. Then 2019, hooks arrived, and what are they? So why did we think about creating hooks in the first place? It's just a function that lets you use React features like access of a lifecycle, access of a local state management, and directly with functional components. And this is a big deal because before that, we used to have in React a lot of classes, especially when you needed to tinker with internal management. You had to do some component will mount, component did mount, component will unmount and stuff. And now you could just use some hooks to just put an effect in it if you want to do some logic before re-rendering or if a props change. Hooks enables functional components to manage state, handle state flag, blah, blah, blah. So let's compare the code of hierarchy components on one side, plus 50 more lines because I do not have space for it actually, and versus hooks. So here we have 10 lines of code. And the first thing we see is that at the very top of my components, I do not have any props anymore, user and theme, but I have is authenticated from use root. I have theme from use theme, I have user from use user. Very direct and straight to the point. If I want to do some logging, I can just use a little use effect here. And then I have something much more cohesive, and I completely understand right now what I'm saying. So Hook solved many of our higher components problems. It has a flat structure, direct logic inclusion at the very top of the components, and it's way better at debugging. Like, you know where the logic is, and you know that you can put a breakpoint or anything you want to debug it. So, wow, hooks are really amazing. So what did we think back in 2019? I was not at Alan at this time, but I was in the tech environment. And when I heard about hooks, I simply put them everywhere. And I know Alaners did that too, because we did put them everywhere, and our code base is filled with that. You need to access to config, we have a hook for that. You need to access to language, we have a hook for that. You need to access to translation or digital, we have a hook for that. You need to make an API call, we have a hook for that. And you need to access a highly personalized health program, for example, we built a hook for that. So yeah, hooks everywhere. But wait, so my talk is called Hooks-o-mania. It seems like there's a little thing fishy here. Is it just paradise everywhere? Well, I did not speak about the fundamental rules of hooks, which are you cannot call conditionally a hook. You cannot have for example, if your data can be undefined or not, you cannot do, oh, if it's defined, then I code this hook. No, you cannot do that. You have to think about how you compose your hooks eventually. Hooks and very simple in appearance. You think like, oh, now I can just put a use effect and just do some logic when something happens and it will work. It depends what you want to do. Sometimes it can be way trickier than that. And then there's the performance that I will talk a little bit later. Why is it a problem for us today, Alan? It's because the rules of hooks are actually shaping the code base. Since hooks cannot be called outside of components and cannot be called conditionally, if all your building blocks are hooks, all your code base become hooks. This is why we have these huge hooks, build personalized program, for example, because all our little hooks that do the navigation, that do the translation, get the language, they're all hooks. So we need to be hooks for that. For some complex cases, this just happened to me 1 hour ago when I realized, oh, I need to do this little bit of logic. No problem, I just can take this hook and put this and, oh, okay, no, my data is actually undefined in some cases. And then I needed to be a little bit smarter than that. They take 55 more minutes. Hooks makes tinkering with React lifecycle easy, but it's still hard to master. We see, like, your code base of 100 very smart and wonderful engineers. Some of them are more backend oriented and stuff, and they just need to go fast and build something that works right now, like form that will create a contract, for example, and maybe set an IBAN or stuff. And so they go fast and they use state for local state management, and then they call a lot of use effects to do some side effects if some props changes. And things end up to not working anymore or to take a very long time and wondering, why does it not work? And we'll see that. And yeah, sometimes we misuse set states in use effect as well. And I have actually a little story for that. So like 1 month earlier, we did a big bug squashing before doing a mobile release. And someone told me, oh, that's strange. I really cannot create a contract on this flow. Can you look at it? So, okay, I'm going to see on the screen and to look at the button component. When you click on it, it will do something. So I see this handle submit function, which is a use callback, great. And when I see that the only things it does is calling a mutation. So it's a React query doing a call with via an API that just said billing IBAN. Okay, I thought it was about creating contracts. Why do we just do a set billing IBAN? And then I see that we also listen to a lot of stuff. Like when the query is pending, is there an error? Success. Strange. And then I see a use effect outside of everything that actually listen if we succeeded to do the call. Okay, starting to be a little bit tense in the room. And then if I see a bit below, I see that this use effect has more than 10 dependencies and do another API calls. Okay. I can see a pattern right now, and when I see another use effect, but listen to the new calls that we created, and so on. And well, we realized that we just needed to remove all these use effects and just do a huge callback with async await in it. Another quick pattern. Hooks can impact performance as well. If you have a complex, for example, when you log in your applications and you do a lots of calls to fetch the user list for something or any list, any kind of data you have, sometimes you do a lot of calls. And then you do a little action on your application. For example, you try to unset in your settings something, and then it invalidates the queries, all the queries, because we are on reg queries. And then you do another 100 API calls, and then you can do over set states, and it can really pile up. And sometimes you are very thoughtful about your design and you think, oh, it's okay, I'm just going to re-render this little stuff, but you actually render your whole application, and this starts to be very, very costly. This is something that we saw in our hub. So am I telling you that we should get rid of all hooks and go back to harder components? Thanks God, no. I just encourage you to regulate your usage of hooks and to better think about some choices in your design, in your application. On our side, we started to dehookify our core libraries. Like everything, you remember when I showed you use string, use language, use translation, etc. We started to dehookify them, so transform it in just regular code that we could use everywhere. This way, we can start to stop the viral spread of hooks everywhere. For example, a little thing that amused me, sorry if it's a little bit later, it's the same method, just on the first, on the panel on the top, we have test string, which is the translation method that is passed as an argument because it's a hook. So if I want to use it in this regular piece of code, I need to pass it as an argument. And after this refactoring, I just need to import it once and it's okay. And since I called format extra data value from branch everywhere, it really saved me a lot of time. We also decided to rewrite our most complex custom hooks. So we do not get rid of hooks. We just stop using hooks at the root of our applications to use it at the very end. For that, we slowly switch to a library that provides very small reactive variables called observables to replace hooks in our core services. And this way, it will allow us to keep components reactive and break, most importantly, it allows us to break down big portion of logic we could not call conditionally or inside regular code. And this is a game changer in terms of developer experience. Finally, we keep hooks to handle local state. Most of our forms use local state, and it works very well, and you want to keep that. Also, while we started to dehookify slowly, it's not there yet, so we cannot just say, hey, stop using hooks now, use our stuff. Okay, thank you for listening to me. I hope it will inspire you to think a little bit about the design of your architecture and hooks. Thank you.